Hello and welcome to Game Theory. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bub Carrington joins the show. Another one of my favorite prospects in the 2024 NBA draft. Bub Carrington is an absolutely tremendous pull-up shooter, passer, playmaker, all-around awesome lead guard for the University of Pittsburgh this season. I have him as a top 10 player in this draft class, and I'm really, really excited to have you guys get to watch us break down film together. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What's this gonna be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. So let's just kind of jump in and talk about basketball, because that's what I'm like most excited to do with you. And the thing that really stands out to me about your game, I love your craft as a ball handler. I love your ability to decelerate. I love your ability to get into pull-up jumpers. I just think that the way that your game builds upon itself in ball screens is just so incredibly impressive. So I guess what I would ask you before we even jump in and really start looking at the tape, how did you go about developing that ball screen part of your game?
Honestly, really just by watching it, and I drilled it, obviously, in practices and stuff like that. But this is really my first year playing point guard. So
Yeah.
coming off ball screens was kind of new to me. So kind of just, I feel like I'm a visual learner. So just watching pros, watching college athletes that were in my position, last year and things like that, I was really just like what film I feel like helped me a lot.
And for like people that may not be aware, like your dad, the elder Bub, is a long time coach in the Baltimore, AAU scene, high school scene, younger players, certainly. How do you feel like he kind of helped you develop and kind of grow in that way?
I would say just about always being in my ear, like always kind of just being that vocal role model, vocal like influencer. I would say like he would always just kind of tell me right from wrong, tell me different ways to look at it, just kind of always trying to pick my brain, but also giving me like the real stuff that I might not see.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing, you've always been known more as a scorer, right? And you were a guy that coming in, you were like a top 100-ish recruit or whatever. Like the rankings are meaningless once everybody gets on the court, like we know that. But, is this coming like a little bit sooner than you expected maybe? Because like I know, for instance, like after the Wake Forest game in the ACC tournament, like you even said like, no, like I'm planning on coming back to Pitt for a year. But then like everything turned kind of quickly and you ended up deciding to go pro. So like, was this an expectation for you coming into this year that this would be like a real possibility to get to the NBA after 1 year?
Honestly, it wasn't. Obviously I planned on being there or getting there, but not this soon at all. I fear myself seeing two at least. But fortunate enough for people to think that I should. So I feel like I should take that opportunity.
Yeah. And, look, like I have a top 10 grade on you in this class. Like I'm there with those people, right? Like I certainly agree with them. So let's kind of just talk about basketball, So this one here, I love the way that you navigate with your screener. For somebody that like didn't grow up playing like within a ton of ball screens, right? I think that your synergy with your screeners, be it, the Diaz Graham twins or Federico this year, I thought the way that you just had like an understanding of how to reject screens and like force your bigs into rescreens and little things like that. Like for instance, this one, you take a dribble handoff, you kind of reject the dribble handoff. Is this a set play where you're rejecting a dribble handoff because you see, your teammate here? I think that might be Jalen Lowe there, kind of in your space, or is this a reaction because you see him in your space?
This is more of a reaction, just being on the same page with my big, like you said.
So you try to reject it again, kind of coming across, and then you decide to go and just pull up once you see your man go underneath here. What are you seeing? And this is from that Wake Forest game, that I mentioned earlier, but or no, this is from the home game that you guys played against Wake Forest. But what are you seeing here after that initial cutoff drive
I'm seeing
from?
that he's
Yeah.
overplaying my left, as I feel like they were icing the ball screen. They weren't trying to let me get to it. So once I realized that, I took a few dribbles to set him up going one way so I could use the ball screen. And Fetty ended up setting a great screen. He ended up getting flushed under it. So that's a shot I'm taking 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, and I mean the thing that I think I want people to recognize is how lethal you are as a pull-up player, right? You were unequivocally one of the best pull-up players in college basketball this season, point blank. I believe that you had the second most points per game out of pull-ups of any player in college basketball this season, behind Jordan Pope at Oregon State. Did you say
I,
you didn't know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. You averaged like I think like 8 points per game out of pull-ups this year. And we'll talk about getting to the rim and everything, because I think that's one area where like people have probably certainly asked you questions about. But the pull-up game is so lethal for you that it's just such an immediately translatable weapon. This one, you just kind of go behind the screen and you drill it. You're going to come up here again, dribble handoff. This one, you decide to go. And the thing that just stands out so immediately upon watching you is the way that you use like a hostage dribble, or keep somebody on your hip, right? So as you come off of this action here, what are you trying to do as you see who is that number one for Duke trailing you on your hip here?
I'm trying to make the big make a decision. Is he gonna commit, or is he gonna try to like fall back to protect the rim? And he kind of fake stunt, tried to get back. So I was patient. I knew that I could get to my spot right there and rise up over the little bit of a smaller defender.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up like engaging the big here, right? Like that's just the thing that you constantly do. You are so good at pressing that advantage. Once you get that little advantage with your man on your hip here and forcing this man to engage, right? Like you do it constantly. And that ability here to just like keep this guy on your hip, right? Like you use that little off arm, right? Like I love this little off arm move here
Yeah.
where you can see there, you're just like kind of shoving him back, shoving him back. I mean, what weight did you play at this year?
I played at 183, around 183, 85.
Yeah, I feel like you're going to get so much bigger too, that like these kind of things where you're able to keep this man just like completely in jail, like on your hip, that's only going to get like better for you, don't you think? Like it's going to be easier for you at that point.
That's the plan. Yeah.
That kind of deceleration as well, like we'll talk about that momentarily, but whenever we get into this, I want to talk about mid-range stuff as well. I love the little natural lean back that you have on your shot in that mid-range while still maintaining balance. I love that you elevate into the shot at a really high level, and I love the high release point. It's kind of the exact like blend of skills that you need to be a great mid-range scorer in the NBA. Do you know what you shot from mid-range this year on pull-ups?
I don't.
You shot, I think, 52% this year on mid-range pull-ups. That would be like, among the higher numbers in the NBA. Like it's a very lethal number to really be able to attack. How did you get so comfortable in that mid-range area?
Drilling it billion times, it feels like. Just constant workouts with my dad, any hour of the day. They're just constantly just going in the gym and focusing on that one area. And I feel like that's why I'm like so comfortable in it, because it's just all I'm used to.
Yeah, and that ability is really evident here as well when you're going to get into this, you know, again, rejected ball screen. You reject these ball screens incredibly well. I think you read the way that your man is defending you. Again, like this is an ice situation. You brought that up earlier with Wake Forest. You see here that Riley Kugel for Florida is trying to force you to go to your left. You just feel like very comfortable handling the ball with both hands, I would imagine at this point, right? Like there's no like concern either way. Um, it's just very impressive that you have no issue keeping this guy that's like Riley is a freak athlete, man. Like Riley is a
Yes.
powerful athlete. He is strong. Like that is an NBA caliber, defender athletically on you here. And you just have, again, no problem kind of keeping him on your hip. And then again, I love the off arm move. Like you give that little shove off, right? And it's the deceleration that I love with your game to be able to stop and get to a point. You're not the fastest dude in the world necessarily,
Definitely not.
but I think you stop better than other guys. You know what I mean? Like I think that your ability to slow down and stay on balance and like kind of put that force into the ground in a real way is so important to your game. Is there anybody that you kind of watch that you feel like that you play like in that way to like you can like put force into the ground and stop like that?
I would say Kevin Durant. Definitely
Mm.
was a huge fan of Kevin Durant growing up and constantly watching that mid range amongst drilling it. I feel like was where you start seeing that mesh, that blend.
Yeah, I mean, DMV guy certainly. I don't know. Is where Kevin's from considered Baltimore? I
It's
don't.
not Baltimore. He's
Yeah,
from like a deeper part of Maryland.
yeah, but DMV guy, like it makes total sense that you would like really connect with that. Like, the guys that like kind of stand out to me watching you, you know, because I think you're more of like an on-ball guy, whereas Kevin's going to be, running around screens, running around like all sorts of different actions, right? Like Luka Doncic and James Harden have this superpower, right? Like they're bigger than you, obviously, but that ability to just like put force into the ground and stop, like I think that that's what's so impressive about like your game and how you get into these mid-range shots here. This one here, you're going to come off of a screen, you're going to get into a rescreen from Diaz Graham. That's another NBA draft prospect there in Zion Poulin, 23-year-old dude, and you just use those shoulders to be able to get into him and kind of create that separation, right? The next one here, another dribble handoff into a reject rescreen. You just feel it flows so easily for you. Is kind of the easiest way to put it. There's never a point where you feel flustered on the court to me in terms of keeping your handle alive, right? Like, are you just like an extremely comfortable? How do you develop that poise to like keep your dribble alive and to maintain that live dribble?
I would say just knowing that when you have the ball in your hands, the team is flowing off of how you are moving and you can't get sped up. Like once you start getting sped up, then everyone starts getting sped up, and that's bad basketball. So
Yep.
always being kind of like taught at a young age to like never let them speed you up. You go as fast as you want to go, and
Yep.
that always kind of stuck with me.
So this one, you have Cormac Ryan guarding you again, like older guy, knows how to at least guard, certainly, from having played, I think, 6 or 7 years of college basketball now in Cormac's case. You get this screen here. What makes you decide to snake this screen in the way that you do?
I would say I noticed that he got clipped. Like I noticed that he was in a bad like position because of the screen that Fetty set, and Baycock is known more for playing a deeper drop. So
Yep.
I knew that he wasn't really going to try to stop me. So it was more like I seen the space. I knew that that was my spot, so I was going to get to it.
This is a really good example of another thing that I think you do exceptionally well. It's you can realign your body in midair. I feel like you are so comfortable and confident kind of pulling up from any angle in any type of footwork, right? So like this is realistically not like the ideal space to start getting into your jumper, right? Like I think people would look at you and they would see like, your butt is like back toward the free throw line there, and like your balance like might be a little bit off. Again, I think that like speaks to the deceleration and the force that you can kind of put into the ground. But more than that, it's this ability to really realign your body in midair. How do you, how do you go about being able to work on those different footworks to be able to get that into to get into these shots, and then like be able to turn your body and get your elbow like perfectly aligned to the rim in a circumstance like this?
I know my dad's gonna watch this and be pissed if I don't say anything about it, but it's definitely just from like drilling this with my dad, like doing these exact drills. Uh, Sometimes coming into workouts with him and just literally doing that for like 45 minutes, just working
Yeah.
on twisting your body in the air, still squaring up to make any shot kind of look like a good shot, make it every shot have a chance.
Yep.
And so I would say it was definitely just from doing that constantly.
Yeah, and again, like all of these pull up moments here that we're going through and we're seeing, right? Like this one here, you just kind of almost string out this big, right? And then you just decide to burst through the rim. One area that I think is worth kind of discussing with you is just that ability to consistently get to the basket, right? I think that you do showcase like real moments where you use your stride length, particularly, and get all the way to the rim. But this year, I think you averaged like, I think it was under 2 shots per game at the basket in half court settings. Is it a deal where you just kind of feel more comfortable in that mid-range area? Or, this is a weird way to phrase this question, but like, why don't you end up getting as much rim pressure as, some other guards that, end up in your position playing on ball as much as you do?
Yeah, I get this question a lot, and I would say it's two things. For one, I would say you were right. Like I'm just so naturally built and wired to pull up, and I feel so comfortable doing that. It's more
Yeah.
like that is not in a sorts a layup for me, but if a layup is considered the easiest shot, a pull up is considered the easiest shot for me.
Yep.
And I would say the second thing would be it's just because I wasn't this size nearly my whole life. Like
Yeah.
my majority of my life, I was the smallest guy on the court playing basketball. So
Yeah.
I wasn't
Can
really,
you explain that for people, like when you had your growth spurts, kind of?
yeah. So I would say let's start from freshman year of high school. I was 5'7", about 5'8" my sophomore year, and then that's when COVID. That was during that COVID year, and I grew like maybe like 4 inches that COVID year, like kind of in my sleep. And I was
Mhm.
6 foot six. Yeah, I was about 6 feet, 6'1" for the remainder of my high school career, and then in college, actually, like that summer going into college and a little bit during
Yeah.
college is how I ended up being 6'4" right now. So
Yeah, it was funny when I talked to a few NBA scouts that had like gone to a pit practice, and they were like, he looks like way bigger than what we like remember.
yeah,
And I think that that does like really reform and like change your game in some way. You know what I mean? Like it adjusts things for you. How did you feel like it changed the game for you when you went through those growth spurts?
I would say it changed the game physically. Like I could be physically imposing at
Yeah.
times, and more times than not. And yeah, obviously that helps in every aspect of the game. So then also to kind of like it just took me a minute to get used to it because I
Yeah.
wasn't used to it. So that helped a
So
lot.
when you were 5'8", were you like trying to like do the same like shit that you're doing now, where you like put your shoulder into dudes and like really try and like play, because you play like a pretty physical brand of basketball as it is.
Yeah, I would say no, not at all. I was trying to get away from people. I used a lot of
Yeah.
space dribbles and retreat dribbles and things like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And to speak to like the rim thing, we'll talk about this as we go through like a few more clips here, but I think that you actually have like some pretty real craft around the basket that maybe like people don't notice. Like this is
Yeah,
like a same foot, same hand righty finish, right? Like this, It's not like the easiest shot. Like you would expect most, NBA level lead ball handlers to be able to do this, but I think that you are very comfortable and on balance in a number of different footworks. And that
Yeah.
does translate, hopefully, long term to you being able to continue to get better as a finisher around the rim and even be able to get that kind of rim pressure as we go here. Um, this one, which we kind of played already, I'd imagine again, like this is kind of similar to the Baycott clip, right? Where Jesse Edwards is going to be in a deep drop.
Yeah. And I seen that the side that the ball screen was, it was a step up towards the sideline and with a defender in the corner. So it was going to be cramped over there. So I kind of told Will when he set this screen to hold so I can snake and he can roll behind me to try to get that space in the middle of the floor.
So when you're communicating with him, are you just yelling out like hold in this circumstance?
No, I would we would run this play and then I would see it. And so before we ran it again, I would tell him before we run the play.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is another like kind of prime example of you just like getting into all sorts of footwork stuff. This is glorious. You're the third straight player I've recorded with where I've called out this like beautiful little Dirk like fadeaway jumper, right? With that little off knee. How did you go about figuring this out that this is a move that you can be pretty effective with?
Trying it right there. I'm not even gonna say that's something I necessarily drill or anything.
that was one where you just kind of found it.
Yeah, it was just
But like that speaks to your inherent creativity, right? Like with your feet. That's funny. That's awesome. That is very awesome. It's funny, like Baylor Shireman was telling me, like, yeah, no, I've been doing that since like South Dakota State days. Like, I've just like kind of know that. Like that's how I, get into that shot. I've never been the most athletic guy in the world, and like you're just making it work, in college basketball as an 18-year-old. Like trying it. This one here, I mean, again, it's just the craft, the footwork, the pump fakes. You just like kind of put dudes through the ringer. I feel like every single time that you have the ball. Again, like Riley Kugel is like a physical, strong dude.
Yeah, indeed.
And like, did you kind of feel that strength on you? Like, he's like guarding you in terms of bumping and stuff?
Oh yeah, for sure. Older guard, more physical. Yeah, you feel it definitely.
In this one here, again, like, is this just you recognizing you have the man in the corner, so Walter Clayton's going to be there to help, so you have to kind of snake it and get it back to the middle?
Yes, just take advantage of the open space.
And then this one, like you have Zion Poole in there, like kind of getting ready, like get in your handle, the pump fake. And again, that natural lean back on the jumper to be able to just create that little bit of separation. Kind of talking through this with you, I'm curious, I would imagine that kind of developed when you were younger and just smaller, right? And like you felt like you needed that little bit of like natural fade to get shots off.
Nah, not really.
No?
I would say this is more developed in my junior, senior year of high school.
Interesting.
Cause my game, we flipped, me and my dad, we kind of flipped my game on what I was able to do. It's like when you're smaller, you're not really able to get into these pull-ups like this.
Yeah.
So as I grew, as I developed this game.
Can you kind of like talk about that? I hate those style questions where I'm just like telling you to talk about something, but like, can you kind of explain like how you and your dad like flipped your game and what you mean by that, like in a real way?
So I would say when I was more younger, like early high school days and middle school, as you said, as I mentioned, I was tiny. Like I was usually the smallest guy on the team. So I was mainly me and my dad, we focused on mainly like defending. Like, because if you're small, you're already at a disadvantage. You got to be able to knock down a three and guard somebody. You got to be able to make a point guard's life hell in a way. So that was mainly what we were focused on, just defense and passing. Like I feel like I'm a natural distributor because that's the first thing I ever learned in basketball was being that kind of table setter in a way.
Yeah.
And then as he started to grow, as I started to kind of get more athletic, more like stronger, able to get into shots like this because they expend more energy, is when we took advantage of it and got in the gym constantly and drilling this because you had to break old habits to get room for the new ones.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. Because like I almost felt like you were more of a scorer like at the high school level, but like you're telling it actually like totally makes sense in terms of how your game like came together this year, that you came up more as like a passer playmaker and then kind of developed this part of your game like later in high school, and then this year you kind of blended it all together in that way. Is That's really interesting. So kind of getting into this next one again, again, just like ball screens all day, you get into this DHO, and again, you're just like kind of floating into that mid-range area, knocking it down. Side ball screen. This time they decide to, I mean, are you taking this? Yeah, this is definitely a switch, but as you kind of come across like the mesh point of the screen here, are you assuming this is a switch or a hard hedge?
I was assuming it was a switch as the guy that was guarding me was already pretty big, so I was
Yep.
assuming it was switch.
So as you kind of attack this switch, is your whole plan here just to get back into that step back jumper?
It wasn't. That was more of a kind of I was flowing. I think I was scoring. I think pretty much this game, so it was kind of like
Yeah.
I'm feeling it, you know.
You had a good few days in the
Yeah.
ACC tournament. you had a good few days, I would say. And look, like it was interesting. Like, and one thing I want to talk to you about here, and maybe we can talk about it now, is early in the year, like I thought that you were great early, and then I thought that in the middle of the year, like you might have like went through like a little bit of a lull, right? Like shooting particularly, it felt like was a bit of an issue for you, and then like in your last like 12 or so games, I think you drilled like 45% from three, and you just like really felt it at that point. How much of that was just like an adjustment process for you, like adjusting to college and like getting used to playing against like more athletic players in that way?
I would say it's a major part of it, but I would say a lot of it is also just the mental thing. Like
Yep.
I feel like I wasn't being as young as I wasn't as disciplined enough in my jump shot to keep it the same way every time.
Yep.
So I feel like once you get used to it, I was adjusting to the physicality by changing my jump shot, every two shots, and that would result to inconsistency with it. So once I fixed the inconsistency, I seen consistent results.
Yeah. No, I think that that's really, really smart and really, really, like, it takes like honestly, like you coming up within the game, like you're probably like a little bit more mature than like an 18-year-old. You know what I mean? Just being around your dad all the time and having that, understanding of what the game is, you know what I mean? And how to kind of adjust to all of those things. So this one here, you know, this is just you kind of finding this, you know, easy mid-range like walk-in jumper because PJ Hall decides to play in like a heavy drop. Again, you snake it. I love how you snake ball screens. I think it's just super. You're great at cutting off those angles for those smaller guards. Like you just make it so difficult for them to stay attached to you. And the thing that I haven't really brought up yet, but that you do really well for a teenager particularly, is you can shoot both going to your right and to your left. We've watched a few jumpers where, for instance, the one that I called out where you were wrong footed and then you realigned in midair, that's you going to your right. This one's you going to your left here. Most right-handed shooters, by and large, not everybody, are a little bit more comfortable like stepping back to their left because it just kind of gets them into like a natural rhythm. You were like completely comfortable and confident going both to your left and to your right. How did you, I mean, like I keep asking just like how did you go about developing this, but like that is a real specific skill set for a teenager to have. So how did you like really go about trying to make that a part of your game?
By trying not to have a weakness in that mid-range area. Like as I mentioned earlier, like we were trying to mold my game into this mid-range, and when you're trying to get into a league where this shot is probably less valued, the least valued shot on the floor, you got to be able to not be a hindrance in any way in this shot. So I
Yeah.
feel like trying to master every kind of way you take a pull up, so it's not really looked down upon as much when you take it, because you always been doing it. You always were able to showcase it.
Well, and like on ball guys too, like you do need a mid-range game. Like that's kind of like the secret of the thing. Like, the guys who take the shots at the rim and the threes are the guys that are like catch and shoot guys. Like those are the ones where you really can't like have those guys taking anything other than threes and layups, right? But the
Yeah.
guys who are going to operate on the ball, I mean, you absolutely need like all three levels at the NBA, and I think that you're 100% right to develop that part of your game and continue to grow and mature. And I think it's like an enormous building block for you. Like this one here, this is talking about getting to the rim. Like this is Tyrese Proctor you're going against, like a really really good defender and a big one too. 6'4", 6'5", pretty long arms. Much stronger after his first year at Duke.
Man.
And I love how you tuck it like a football player. Like, did you grow up playing football at all?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I would
His
say
his
football was my first love.
Really, how has that kind of impacted the way that you kind of think about basketball?
I would say you think about it in a more like skillful way, I would
Yeah.
say, because football is one of the few sports where you don't really got to be as skillful to be good.
Yeah.
So, but you got to be skillful in basketball. So you kind of think of it in a way where you're trying to balance both.
So this one here, I mentioned earlier that I love your stride length, right? Like this is one where you like extend out as far as you can. I love the length extension here, that 6'8" wingspan that you have to be able to get that, arm all the way out, get the ball as close to the rim as possible. Finish with the left, obviously. Like that's a really, really important thing, being able to finish with both hands. This one here, pump fake, drive. I love that little extend out. Like I guess I would call this like a Euro step, right? You plant left and then kind of go to the right. So what are you seeing here as you come off of this screen and decide to go all the way to the rim?
I'm seeing that there isn't really strong help, and the fact that I was able to kind of beat him off of one dribble, I see that I'm trying to basically cut him off. I have the advantage, so I'm trying to completely eliminate him by doing
Yeah.
that Euro.
In this one here, like I'd imagine that if this guy comes early, and I swear we're going to get to the passing here momentarily, which again, like one of the more fun parts of your game, like I'd imagine if this guy comes and, shows here as early as, earlier, let's say, you
Tough.
feel like Fetty has a real angle on this man here, having him on his back so that you could just kind of throw this lob, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, look, like I think that you have the ability to get to the rim, and I think that the way that you phrase your growth and your development, right, is so critical to what your future can be getting to the basket, because it's just not something that you did a lot of being smaller, right? It's not that you can't do it, it's just that you didn't do it whenever you actually couldn't do it when you were younger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This one here, we're gonna get into like a little ghost into a empty side ball screen.
I call a foul right here.
Yeah, they got you with a foul, and I kind of wanted to just like talk with you a little bit about just like you were not in any way like turnover prone this year at all, but I think you averaged under 2 turnovers per game. If there's one thing that like I thought you did occasionally, it was like kind of pick up your dribble in the mid-range area and like kind of get caught, right?
Yeah.
You are quite good at keeping a live dribble, but just kind of take me through this one and just kind of tell me what you see here and where you think you kind of made your like slight mistake here.
I would say by not attacking Baycock fully directly, like
Yeah.
as you mentioned earlier, like I would say kind of efficient at snaking ball screens, but I would kind of do it too much. And I feel like if I would have attacked Baycock here directly, it would have opened up Fetty a lot more, or make someone tag heavier for a kick out three.
Yeah, and like the cool thing is that the defense is good at basketball too. Like North Carolina was awesome defensively this year, right? You see here like Cormac Ryan is going to come and he's going to like really get a body on Fetty here. So like Fetty doesn't have that kind of
Yeah.
immediate rim gravity for you to be able to just throw this lob up, right? Yeah, it's just like, again, like I think that you could stand to attack the basket there. I think it at that point. And I think that's you're a teenager, you're going to get better at this stuff at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
And you're a teenager that's grown so much and is still trying to figure out how to use that frame, right? So that'll come along. I think we're now going to get into the real fun stuff, which is the passing. This is sick. Explain to me what you see here.
We ran a play, but we ended up running it wrong actually. So this was a broken play, but it ended up working because I seen the empty side, and I kind of just tried to take advantage of it immediately. And I mean, anytime someone's kind of sent to the ball, someone's open.
Yeah, and I'm glad that after that last play, we see you just like attacking space here, right, and trying to get downhill, get all the way to the rim. One fun thing that you do is you are a very serious jump passer, and I think that has like a negative connotation sometimes.
Yeah.
In your case where you average 1.9 turnovers per game, I don't really care, I think. So how do you process things when you're in the air, I guess, and like jumping? It seems like this one you had a plan, but like I've seen you make passes where it feels like mostly you have a plan, but then like maybe sometimes you're kind of still trying to, process it all at once.
So I'm glad you brought that up actually, because this was kind of brought to my attention, and I kind of realized it recently. Is I'm still not used to how tall I am yet. I feel like, so I feel like I jump a lot, thinking that like I gotta see over defenders, or like. So I would say that's probably the main reason, but I'll say the second reason is when you have the offensive, I guess, gravity that I kind of had this season. Whenever you even like look at the rim or attack the basket or jump, people are going to react. So I was mainly doing it to create reactions, to get everyone to kind of focus on me, to open up someone else.
No, I love that. I think that's a really, really smart way to put it. I mean, like Tyrese Halliburton is one of the, 3 best passers in the NBA, something like that. The guy jump passes constantly, right? Like he just is excellent at keeping his body in the air, making the defense commit, and going from there. And part of the reason he's successful with that is that, particularly pull up gravity from 30 feet from 3. Like in your case, I think it's the mid-range game, right? Like having that ability to pull up from any angle, right, left footwork, left, right footwork, like whatever you have, like you are a threat to shoot and realign in midair. So you have that, a similar sense of gravity, I think, in that way when you jump pass. So, this one here, just kind of explain to me what you see.
Knowing that UVA is a heavy hedge team that usually leaves rollers open, so they have to be a heavy help team as well. So kind of just realizing that if that immediate slip isn't there, it is because someone is wide open on the backside because he has to tag. So once I was able to see over the big, I seen that Zach was open. Just I feel like I jumped for a strength reason there. I had to try to get it there.
The thing that you do on this pass that I really love, and I realize I went too far, is this guy here. This guy, Ryan Dunn, right? Ryan Dunn is one of the best defenders. I thought he was the best defender in college basketball this year. It was either him or Jamal Shed. Unbelievable on defense. Unbelievable in help defense, particularly. The way that you look him off here, just like very briefly, like you give like just a little minor like glance here, and that forces him up.
Yeah.
And that's what opens the angle for you. I think that is what's really sharp. Just like using your eyes to manipulate that backside defender in the 1-on-2. And Ryan Dunn is not an easy guy to manipulate.
at
I thought
all.
that was really, really impressive. And you kick this out. Austin drills it. This one, you're going to come off the screen again. Hard hedge, as you can see. They get back, they recover, hard hedge. Is that just like you kind of self-processing in the moment, like they're going to hard hedge again, and hopefully, whichever Diaz grandbrother that is slips?
Yeah, it was kind of just recognizing that it is gonna happen. Like they drill that, they make sure they do it every time. So just knowing that it slips will always be there against the edge.
Yep. Yeah, and you can see here, I think that's McNeely a little bit frustrated that like nobody's there, and it's just like, well, you're hard hedging. Like that's an impossible spot to put this man on the backside here in. Like I don't know like what is expected of him in this circumstance, but on the slip, there's just no recourse whatsoever in that play. I love that play from you. This one, again, you take the screen, you hit the kick out here. So as you're coming downhill, what do you see?
I see that it's a lot of bodies in the paint. Like truly,
Yeah.
I didn't know that Blake was gonna be necessarily over there. I knew someone was over there, and I knew that they would be open because I just felt like I was crowded in there.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
So how much of what you see on the court is kind of counting bodies almost, right?
Yeah,
Like
a
you're
lot
kind
of
of, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say a lot of it. One thing that I was taught at a pretty young age is you always wanna push the advantage when you have more your color jersey. So I feel like I just count jerseys or clock jerseys often just to see when we have the advantage or not.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, that's a really, really sharp kick out, right? Like, you know, feels like to me, you're kind of, trying to, jump pass again. I love it. You're seeing here, you're putting velocity on this with your offhand as well. Like this is a live dribble, like, or not really a live dribble because you picked it up at that point, but that is an offhand ball, like zip on that ball. Like that is real velocity to get that ball out to Blake Hinson right in the shooting pocket, perfectly accurate. This one, again, jump pass, perfect. I love how you draw the defender with that jump pass here, right? This is DJ Burns. They're going to play drop obviously with DJ Burns. I assume you're just trying to engage him at that point.
Yeah, just making them fully commit.
You get the ball down, little drop off, perfect. This is one that's fun where, again, like, yeah, you just kind of take me through it here. What are you saying?
We run this play to make that tag defender make a decision. And so coming off these ball screens, I'm just reading that low man, Zach Sky, and he has a decision to make whether he protects the rim or he protects the three. And once I seen that he took even that one or two steps inside, I knew that Zach would have that window to take that shot. So I tried to get it over there as fast as I could.
Yeah, no, it's a perfect read. It's the exact way you're supposed to look at that play. Just that little shake, like right up to from the corner to the wing. This one, again, like you throw these skip passes just like absolutely perfectly. I don't think he called bank, but whatever.
He definitely
didn't. This one here, little rescreen with Fetty here. And again, it's just reading that backside defender. How did you go about developing that vision? Because like literally you are looking at him here, like where we have this screen paused. How did you kind of get so comfortable looking at that just like backside, weak side defender?
I would say credit to the coaches, the coaching staff, just
Yeah.
constantly showing me that film, like showing me that you can make the game so much easier by not worrying about the man in front of you, because in your head he
Yeah.
has to already be beat. You have to read the next man. So I would say just them constantly showing me that, those tags will be there. College basketball principles are pretty standard in a way.
Yeah.
So knowing that will always be there.
I mean, by and large, like, similar principles in the NBA too on that weak side tag, because, if you have, I'm trying to think of like a great, like Rudy Gobert, like unbelievable, like rim threat, like coming downhill off of a screen. If you don't send a tagger, it's over. You know what I
So
mean?
yeah.
Yeah. Those guys are so big and so strong and so long that the same principle applies. So I think that, these are all just so directly translatable more than anything passing wise to me. That's what immediately stands out about you. All of your passes for the most part are just very translatable to what you do. This one, I kind of wanted to get into your off ball game now, because like I've seen people question whether or not like you're gonna like be able to play off the ball, probably just based off the 3-point percentage being 32% or whatever. But you are a very real shooter, and like I've seen you come off of screens and like knock down shots off of movement and catch and shoot from three, right? Like I don't really think you're going to have a problem shifting off the ball at times. Like you played a decent amount off the ball in high school, a little bit, didn't you?
I played majority off the ball. I only played off the ball.
Yeah.
I didn't play
I was
point
going
guard
to say.
after college.
Yeah, I thought so. So, how comfortable are you just like playing off the ball after this year at Pitt?
It's like night and day. Like that's that's been the basketball player I've always been. It wasn't until like I mentioned, I got to college to where I was predominantly a ball handler.
It's just like that comfort level. Like you showcase very real, you know, talent and ability whenever you're playing off the ball. You know how to space, right? Like this is pretty simple here, right? Like you understand that, I can play deep. Look at that. Like you have like you are ready to catch and fire from three there. Like you have your legs bent, you have your body turned like toward your player, but also like set to get into a shot off the hop, right? Like this is all you're sliding, like you're just kind of moving across the 3-point line to get into shooting position. Like some on-ball players, like they don't necessarily have those like immediate skills, right? Because they've just grown up playing on the ball and they're easily developable, right? Like this is just like stuff you have to learn as you get older. But you having that immediately coming into the NBA, I think is actually a real credit to you. And I think it kind of goes understated within your game a little bit, just like having that level of comfort off of the ball. And you move well. Like a lot of these are just like sets, but that last one is not a set. Like that's one where you're just spacing naturally and you're kind of relocating across the 3-point line and trying to create a dangerous situation for your defender having to close out or not close out, and you're going to be able to take a three. This one here coming off of just like, that middle pin down, and you're just like firing from three again. Like, what is the difference for you firing from three off the catch versus off of a pull up? Because your ball pickups off of pull ups are so good, but off the catch, it's just like totally different mechanics, right?
Yeah. I would say it's a mental thing more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't get too comfortable. I feel like that was one thing I kind of struggled with. Like when I was catching and shooting, I was kind of just relaxed, I guess, because I wasn't necessarily moving into it. So which translated into like a more like lazy looking jump shot.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized, just don't get too comfortable. Get out of your head.
Yeah, and
Like right
this
there,
one,
it's different.
yeah, like so. Look at that. Like your knees are bent, you're set, arms ready to catch, fire, and you just drill it, right? Like your shot prep there is perfect. The next place I do want to talk about, and this will be the last place we talk about, is defense. I thought you struggled a little bit early in the season defensively. I thought you got drastically better throughout the season defensively, to the point where I thought you were like a pretty damn good defender by the end of the year this year at Pitt. So what was that growth process like for you coming into college, adjusting to the physicality, everything that comes with that, and then maturing and growing throughout the year defensively at Pitt?
I would say it was natural for me. Like I said, that was kind of what I started my game off of, was defense. and
Yeah.
kind of being sound in my defensive principles.
Yeah,
And then, adjusting to college basketball is different than anything you've played in.
for sure.
And, but once you realize how big you are and how strong you are, you kind of start growing into your body. You know how to use it, and you combine that like kind of length with your natural defensive instincts. You have the potential to be a good defender, like you said.
Yeah, like you clearly have an attitude like you want to defend. Like there's never a question. Like some dudes like, it's indifference or anything like that. Like you don't have that indifference on defense at all. Like you are engaged, it feels like to me, every single time you're on that end of the court.
Mhm.
Is that like, I mean, we kind of talked about it a minute ago, but like that's just like something that you were like brought up within, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was something that it was unexcusable, inexcusable. It was
Yeah,
you got to be able to stop your man, and you got to have a certain attitude about it. You got to
right.
hate getting scored on.
That's right. No, I think that's a great way to put it. So this one here, you're dealing with RJ Davis, ACC Player of the Year, right? Like another prime example of like you certainly, at the very least by the end of the year, becoming a guy that was like a real defender. They wouldn't give you this assignment otherwise. You know what I mean? Like that guy can go. So
Exactly.
this one, I love the way that you kind of stay attached, you navigate the screen, you call out a switch, right? You stay attached to Cadeau, you close out, you get the contest, right? He makes it, but you're engaged the whole way. Like sometimes RJ Davis is going to make a three on you, and
Exactly.
you just kind of have to live with that, right? But I love the way that you're communicating here. I love this like shot here is perfect for me, right? Like you're clearly like calling out and communicating what's happening. You're here on the backside. Obviously, there's a double. You're in a 1-on-2 situation here where Elliot Cadeau is going to cut to the rim.
Yeah.
You're responsible for both of these guys, right? Because Blake is up here against Harrison Ingram. Obviously, Zach's here against Cormac Ryan, and you have two on the ball with Baycott. You're just like there's no way, like exactly what your responsibilities are here. You make sure you stay on the guy at the rim, but you still have your momentum going the other way, right? Because you can see that kick out is a real possibility here. I love how like you're very clearly reading where Baycott is trying to go here because your momentum is starting to go that way while still being connected to Cadeau. In these 1-on-2 situations, like you watching as much NBA as you do, all the time. They come up all the time in the NBA, and you have to be able to get out and cover that ground. I think you cover the ground here fine. Is that kind of everything that you're kind of seeing on this play? Like as you deal with that 1-on-2?
Yeah, you called it out perfectly. Communicating the switch. We usually the double would have came from me, but we
Yeah.
sent the double for more matchup reasons. So communicating that no, JLo, you go, and stand in the stance, trying to read his eyes. And like you said, a good player is gonna hit good shots quite often. So you gotta live with
Yeah.
that.
I think that was everything that you can do right on that play. Just the shot went in. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And that's going to happen. This one, you're kind of tracking another, potential NBA prospect this year. Obviously, he decided to go 2025 and Hunter Salas, but just staying attached to him, and you made his life miserable in this game. Like you absolutely made his life a living hell. It felt like just look at the hands, disrupting with the hands, trying to get into the dribble. He gets unsettled, right, and kind of throws it away. So, kind of talk me through what you're seeing throughout this. Like, is this something that you kind of saw in the scouting report, or like in the pregame where they would kind of run this set regularly, and you kind of had a feel for it?
Yeah, I would definitely say scouting helps a lot. We scouted quite a lot this year, so we knew we knew what sets they were running. But I would say after they kind of didn't use the screen, this is one-on-one defense, and just
Yep.
trying to pressure the ball, like you said, make his life pretty rough because he's their main scorer. So if you try to cut him down, they got a lot of slack to pick up.
Yeah, I mean, again, like the best evidence that you were a really good defender by the end of the year is, the two things that we've seen here in the ACC: you defending Hunter Salas, who averaged 18 points a game or whatever, and RJ Davis, who's the best player in the ACC this year, right? Like, you getting those assignments is like great evidence to me, and you doing a good job on them. This one here immediately, just like, you're talking. Look at that. Like, very obvious. Like, I don't need to be there at the ACC tournament to know you're talking to your teammates. Like, you're pointing out, you're saying like, I got ball here, calling it out for everybody. Or no, are you saying to Jalen to get the ball?
Yes.
So you're saying to Jalen to get the ball here, and then you're going to take the trailer. You call out another switch, right? Like, just this little thing here, right? You can see your left hand go up right there, calling out another switch, communicating, talking. Look at the way you get over that screen. Like, that is outstanding. That's exact like trail technique that you want to have there. This one, you get over the screen with just that little hop step, right? Like, that's perfect. Like, that's exactly what you want to do. You use your length to recover. Yeah, like, you end up giving up a tough contested mid-range or 3-point shot. But that's textbook. Like, this is all textbook to me. And again, like you mentioned, coming up playing defense, I can only imagine you, like when you were smaller, having to do this. Like, now that you're bigger, how much easier is it for you to defend having that size and length?
I would say it's easier for on ball, but definitely harder off ball because you got with a bigger frame, you get hit more with those screens and things of that nature.
Man, I thought you were awesome getting around screens off the ball, even though.
And I feel like that was contribute to the fact that when I was smaller, it was so easy to, and I was just small like last year. So it was kind of like I still had that same like kind of attitude about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is again like coming off that off-ball screen. They're clearly trying to get it to RJ here, and you're right in front. Look at that length. Like, you're touching him, but you're still like right at the 3-point line, making it hard on him. Like, you made it really, really hard on these dudes on the ball, I thought. Next one here. This is against Georgia Tech. You're on the ball, and you just like completely shut it down. Right? Like, that's one where like you use your length and strength. Like, I think that's Sturdivant, and Sturdivant's like a 5th-year guy. Theoretically could go right through you, and you just use your size, your length, you cut off the angle, get the blocked shot. This one again, like coming off of screens, right? Man, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you did a great job coming off of screens off the ball, I thought.
I mean, because I can tell you one big reason is because I didn't like getting hit. So it was like a mindset, like I can't get hit.
Yeah, I mean, like, you trail, like that's actually a really difficult screen to get around there without getting bumped in the way that you do. Like, he took that angle tight. That's is that Gerard, I think, right?
Yes.
Like, Gerard is an expert at this. Yeah, I don't know if you were Blake got credit for that steal, but I think that it was blown up certainly by you. Being able to get through that action and being able to kind of come around here and get back in front of Joe Girard. This next one here, I think, is like the one area where, if I remember correctly on what this is, so you kind of chase around, you do a good job. You end up switched on to Jameer Watkins, I believe that is, and you kind of end up having to navigate this. It's just like a strength factor for you right now on some level, right? Like, just being a little bit skinnier than these guys, being 18 years old, whereas Jameer Watkins is, I think 21 or 22, and like, he is a big dude. He's a strong physical dude. Like, you kind of end up having to go through this. You retreat. Like, I agree with you for what it's worth here. I'm not sure where the foul is. I appreciate that you have your hands up here, but like, yeah, it's just like, you're going to have to deal with that strength factor, right? Like, you have to continue to be able to get bumped and like kind of go through the play, right? So how comfortable, you're comfortable doing it. I know that you don't, like you said, you don't want to get bumped on those things, but I think that you you are comfortable playing through contact though. That's the thing that like
Yeah,
it's your
100%.
game. You know what I mean? Like that's a
Yeah,
joke. That's not a I don't like contact. That's a if I get contacted in some spaces, I might get, my momentum thrown off right now, right?
mhm,
Yeah. So look, like I think you really developed into being a good defender. I think you're going to be a good NBA defender at the end of the day. And I think that again, like everything we kind of talked about here, everything in terms of how your game flows upon itself, right? You have excellent on-ball capabilities. You have the dribble, pass, shoot stuff. You have comfort playing off the ball. Your vision is awesome. You process the game and you can defend. Like I'm, an enormous fan, and the fact that you're doing all of this at 18 is just it's really, really remarkable to me. I mean, you kind of mentioned you didn't necessarily see, one and done as a thing, but I think that it's certainly you've deserved all of the accolades you've received this year, to be sure.
thank you.
The final couple things that I always like to ask guys is, who was the best player you played against this year? You thought
Best player, DJ Burns,
interesting. Tell me
100%.
why.
He that dude is actually like really good at basketball, and I think people take like his physique, so
Yeah,
they take like his attitude, or like not his attitude, but like his personality, and they view it so they take him as a
yeah.
joke. But like
Fun dude. Yeah,
he's a real deal good, and if he was able or not able, but like if he played more minutes a game than he did, he would people would really see how efficient he was.
yeah. I was talking to somebody that went down to see him. He's obviously doing pre-draft workouts and stuff as well. Um, he apparently has lost like a crazy amount of weight,
Yeah, he did.
and yeah, it's like looking pretty good. So I'm interested at least to see where it goes. Like he might end up starting overseas or starting in the G League, but
Yeah.
him getting a chance to prove it will at least be interesting. Last question for you. What is your favorite sports movie of all time?
Favorite sports movie of all time? I'll probably say Coach Carter.
It is really your generation that loves this movie. You are at least number 3, maybe number 4 out
Yeah.
of like the 7 people that I've done this with that have said Coach Carter. Why do you love Coach Carter?
I feel like that was just an amazing movie.
Yeah.
And it really like drew you in. It's almost like you were a player.
Yeah.
But what was yours? Why do you say this generation was yours?
No, it's just funny that it's Coach Carter, because Coach Carter I almost think of as like like I'm 34, right? And Coach
Mhm.
Carter I always think of as like that movie came out when like I was 15. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I feel like you're like anybody from like 18 to 24, it's almost, and like I'm like the white dude saying Hoosiers now, like I'm cognizant of that. But
Yeah.
like I'm like for me it's almost like that movie is 18, 19 years old now. Like when
Yeah.
I was, in 2005 and I was 15, Hoosiers was 18 or 19 years old. And like maybe it's that kind of thing where generationally, like people in my era, like really like Hoosiers, and in like the previous era, maybe it's just like kind of trickling down in some way to, your era where, Coach
Maybe.
Carter was 18 years old and is, kind of coming down uh, into your area.
Yeah, maybe I would say.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm so yeah, it's a great movie. I love Coach Carter. It's fantastic. You asked me for mine. Mine is I like Warrior, but like that's also like a Pittsburgh movie. Like I grew up in Pittsburgh. The literally like the high school where they film like the high school scenes in Warrior is like the high school that was like my rival, like high school.
Oh, really?
Um yeah, it's like the MMA movie with Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I just like know the area, and like I can like literally like see all the stuff like as they're like walking around it. So
Yeah, that makes
um
sense.
yeah, so like you love where you come from, right?
Yeah, that's how I am with The Wire.
Is it? So
Yeah,
yeah, it's another one. Man, you just like you love the 2005 era stuff. That's where you're at.
I guess so.
Were you were you born when The Wire came out or like was done even? I don't know. Because you're
No.
August, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, July. Yeah.
July. Yeah. That's funny, man. Bub, I appreciate it, man. Is there anything else you want to like kind of impart to people before you go? I think that, we all love your game. Like we're all super excited to see where you go. And anything else you feel like that you didn't, get a chance to let people in on as a part of your personality.
Um, I would say I'm actually really athletic, and y'all see that. I'm about to start showcasing my athleticism and start dunking on
Yeah.
people. But people don't believe me, but I'm gonna start showing y'all.
It's funny. It's very funny. I love it. I'm excited, man. Like I would love to see you just like throwing down on dudes. And the thing is that like guys that have the late growth spurt, like you do, right? They tend to take a minute to grow into their bodies and also grow into like their muscles in some way that like help with that pop. I believe it, man. I'm here for it. I'm ready. I'm ready to see it.
All right.
Thanks, Bub. I'm excited.